My boss called me into her office and said, "We need to discuss what happened with your coworker's duck." My coworker, Gerald, had walked into the office 3 months ago carrying an actual duck. "Everyone, meet Quackers," he announced. My anxiety support animal. The duck waddled over to my desk and I felt my throat instantly closing up. I'm severely allergic to birds. By lunchtime, my eyes were swollen shut and I was wheezing so badly I could barely breathe. I stumbled into HR, squinting at the manager through my puffed eyelids. "There's a duck," I managed to say. "I'm allergic to birds. I can't breathe." She calmly slid a bottle of Benadryl across her desk. "Gerald has documentation. You'll need to manage your symptoms." The next 3 months were torture. During my biggest client presentation, I sneezed 17 times in a row because Quackers was sitting under the conference table. The client asked if I was all right, and I tried to say yes, but my face was so swollen I looked like I'd been in a car crash. We lost the account. When I complained to HR, Gerald overheard and cornered me by the elevator. "You're discriminating against my disability," he said, clutching Quackers to his chest. "That's illegal, you know." The duck quacked right in my face, and I broke out in hives so bad I had to go home early. Then my coworker Jennifer started leaving rubber ducks on my desk with notes like, "Quacker says hi." One morning, I found my keyboard covered in real duck poop. I took photos and went straight to HR. "Can you prove it was Quackers?" the manager asked. I just stared at her. "It's duck poop. There's one duck in this office." She said she'd look into it. Nothing happened. My doctor wrote a note saying my allergy was severe and potentially dangerous. HR told me to try a different antihistamine. One morning, desperate to breathe, I came in at 6 a.m. to finish a report before Quackers arrived. The office was peaceful and quiet. For once, I could breathe normally. Around 7, Gerald walked in with Quackers. "You're here early," he said cheerfully. The duck waddled toward my desk, and my eyes started watering again. An hour later, Gerald started screaming, "Quackers! Quackers!" I ran over. The duck was lying near the break room floor, not moving. That afternoon, my boss called me into her office. The HR manager was already sitting there. "Where were you this morning?" my boss asked. "I came in early to work on the Garnington report." She turned her monitor toward me. Security footage showed me in the break room making coffee right where Quackers later died. "We're investigating whether you poisoned Gerald's duck," she said. I froze. "I didn't touch that duck." Gerald filed a police report. "The company suspended me." A detective came to my apartment with a folder full of my HR complaints. "You filed 16 complaints about this duck in 3 months," he said. "That's a lot of motive." My coworkers started posting online, calling me a murderer. Someone even left a dead rubber duck on my doorstep. I couldn't sleep. I replayed the security footage again and again until I noticed it. The timestamp jumped from 7:15 to 7:30. 15 minutes missing. I dug through the company directory and found Justin from IT. He could delete footage. I remembered him yelling about Quackers eating his lunch twice. I waited for him in the parking lot after work. "Justin, I know you deleted that footage." His face went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." I stepped closer. The duck died right after that missing 15 minutes. "What did you do?" He looked around, then sighed. "It kept eating my food. I left out some stuff with rat poison in it. I didn't think it would eat it that fast." When Gerald started screaming, I panicked and deleted the footage. But everyone already hated you, so I went straight to HR the next morning and told them everything. When I told my boss, she looked at me like I was crazy. "So you're saying Justin killed the duck and framed you, but you have no proof?" Justin denied the entire thing. He told HR I was harassing him to save myself. The company was ready to fire me for creating a hostile work environment. Then Gerald showed up at my door with a woman in a gray suit and a folder. My stomach dropped as soon as I saw the papers. He shoved them at me. Complaint for damages. $50,000 for emotional distress. His face was red and streaked with tears as he pointed at me, shaking. The woman touched his arm, guiding him away. I watched them get into a black car and drive off. Then I shut the door and slid down to the floor, the papers trembling in my hands. The lawsuit claimed I'd poisoned his duck out of spite, described me as cruel, vindictive, heartless. I read it 3 times. Each time, my chest felt tighter. I grabbed my phone and started calling every contact who might know a lawyer. Most calls went to voicemail. Offices closed until Monday. My cousin, who does real estate law, said I needed a criminal defense attorney. So I Googled lawyers near me and started dialing emergency numbers. One receptionist said the consultation fee started at $500. I said yes immediately. I didn't care about the cost anymore. Another office says they can't take new clients for 3 weeks. I leave voicemails everywhere, explaining through tears that I'm being sued and investigated for killing a duck I didn't kill. By 11 p.m., I'm sitting in the dark with my phone in my hand, wondering if I should just give up. Then it rings an unknown number. I answer so fast I almost drop it. A man's voice asks if I'm the one who called about the duck case. I say yes. He introduces himself as Philip Kelly, says he heard my voicemail, and that something about my situation caught his attention. We talk for about 20 minutes while he asks basic questions, then agrees to meet me tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. I thank him about 5 times, and he tells me to bring every document I have. I show up at Philip's office at 6:50 a.m. with a backpack full of papers and my laptop. His office is in an old downtown building that smells like coffee and old books. The wooden shelves are crammed with legal volumes, and the furniture looks like it's been there for decades. Philip's around 50, with gray hair and reading glasses, dressed in a button-down without a tie. He shakes my hand, points to the chair across from his desk, and pours me coffee from a pot on the side table. I start from the beginning, my allergy, the 16 complaints, coming in early, finding the duck dead, being suspended, confronting Justin in the parking lot. Philip writes fast on a yellow legal pad, barely looking up. His expression never changes. He just keeps nodding and taking notes. When I mention the missing 15 minutes of security footage, his pen stops. He looks up sharply and asks me to repeat that part. I explain how the timestamp jumps from 7:15 to 7:30 and how I realized Justin had access to delete footage. Philip leans back in his chair, tapping his pen against the pad, studying me like he's deciding whether to believe me. Then he leans forward again and tells me to walk him through everything about Justin, word for word. I go over the parking lot conversation in detail, Justin admitting to leaving out rat poison, panicking when the duck died, deleting the footage. Philip makes me repeat it 3 times, asking precise questions about Justin's tone, his expressions, whether anyone else saw us. I tell him Justin looked terrified at first, then relieved when he realized I had no proof. Philip finally sets his pen down. He says if I'm telling the truth, Justin destroyed evidence in an active investigation, a felony that shows consciousness of guilt. That could be my strongest defense. But without proof of our conversation, it's my word against his, and Justin's already told HR I'm lying. I ask what we can do. Philip says we'll need to build a case proving Justin had motive, means, and opportunity to poison the duck. The missing footage already proves tampering. If we can tie that to Justin, it creates reasonable doubt about me. For the next 2 hours, we spread papers across his desk, piecing together a timeline of everything. I show him all 16 HR complaints, each one dated and documented. He reads my medical records showing ER visits for allergic reactions, including one where my throat began closing. I open my laptop and show him the security footage. We watch it together, and Philip takes notes on the timestamp jump. He points out that I left the break room at 7:10, 5 minutes before the missing segment even starts. Then I show him the emails where I begged HR for help, their replies basically telling me to try different medication. Philip nods. This paper trail actually helps you, he says. It shows you tried to handle things properly. Someone planning to kill the duck wouldn't spend 3 months filing complaints and seeing doctors. They'd just do it. For the first time in days, I feel a flicker of hope. Philip explains that Gerald's lawsuit and the criminal investigation are separate, one civil, one criminal, and they'll move on different timelines. The civil case is just about money. Gerald has to prove I'm responsible for his loss. The criminal case, though, could lead to real charges if the police think they have enough. He says the civil suit will probably pause until the criminal investigation ends, since Gerald's lawyer won't want to proceed without knowing the outcome. When I ask about my job suspension, Philip frowns. The company suspended me without pay even though I haven't been charged. He says that might be premature, maybe even wrongful, but we'll deal with that later. The priority is the criminal case. If I'm charged with animal cruelty, I could face jail time and a permanent record. Then I ask what his services will cost. Without hesitation, Philip says the retainer for both the criminal defense and the civil response will be $15,000. My chest tightens when Philip quotes $15,000, but he explains it covers investigation, document review, court appearances, and negotiations. I think about my savings, $18,000 I'd built for emergencies. I guess being sued for killing a duck qualifies. I agree to pay, sign the contract with shaking hands, and watch my emergency fund vanish. Philip files the check and immediately calls Detective Dominique Braun, the lead investigator. He introduces himself as my attorney and requests a meeting to present new evidence. After a short conversation, he hangs up and tells me Braun agreed to meet us in 3 days, unusually fast, which might mean she has doubts about the case. He warns me not to talk to anyone, not Justin, not Gerald, not my coworkers. The next 3 days crawl by. I stay in my apartment, suspended without pay, too afraid to go outside. On the second morning, I find Duck Killer spray-painted in red across my car. My hands shake as I take pictures and file a police report, but the responding officer clearly doesn't care. I spend the rest of the day hiding inside, ignoring the constant buzz of messages, some sympathetic, most cruel. On the third day, I get a call from an unfamiliar number. It's Naomi, my ex. She says she saw the news and wanted to check on me. When I insist I didn't kill the duck, she says she knows, reminds me how I cried harder than she did when her cat was put down. She offers to give a character statement to the police. I think her over and over, barely holding back tears. That night, I open the security footage again. The grainy video shows me making coffee at 6:15 a.m., then working at my desk. At 7:15, Gerald enters with quackers. I can see myself already reacting, eyes swelling, face red. Then, suddenly, the timestamp jumps from 7:15 to 7:30. In that missing 15 minutes, a paper plate appears on the counter and Quackers lies motionless on the floor. Someone was in the room during that gap, someone who could delete footage. My hands shake as I take screenshots of the timestamp jump, saving them to a folder. Real proof at last. I want to call Philip immediately, but it's nearly midnight. I'll tell him first thing in the morning. At 8 a.m., my phone rings, and I nearly drop it answering. Philip's voice is calm and focused. He's hiring a digital forensics expert to analyze the footage and confirm the timestamp tampering. It'll cost $2,000. My savings are already drained, but I tell him to do it. He explains that without expert verification, my screenshots won't hold up in court. I email him the file, and he says we'll have results within 48 hours. The wait is unbearable. I barely sleep, pacing my apartment and jumping every time my phone buzzes. When it finally rings a day later, it's Philip. The expert confirmed everything. The footage was edited using administrator-level access at 7:42 a.m., about 12 minutes after the duck died. Philip sounds almost excited. This is real evidence. He's already arranged a meeting with Detective Braun for the next morning. The police station smells like burnt coffee and bleach. Detective Braun, sharp-eyed and serious, meets us in a small conference room. Philip hands her the forensics report, and she studies it carefully. She questions me about Justin's access, his complaints about the duck, and his role in IT. I answer everything as steadily as I can. Then Braun admits something that makes my stomach twist. They never really investigated anyone but me. I had motive, and I was alone that morning. It seemed open and shut. Philip points out that deleted footage proves someone else had a reason to hide the truth. Braun nods slowly and agrees to question Justin, but warns us the case against him is still circumstantial without proof he handled rat poison. We'll need evidence, a purchase record or supply order linking him directly. As we leave, I suddenly remember Justin constantly complaining about mice in the server room. He mentioned setting traps and ordering supplies himself. Philip immediately starts jotting notes, talking about subpoenas and purchase orders. That afternoon, I call Maurice from accounting and ask to meet. He looks nervous at the cafe, barely touching his coffee. He confirms the IT department has its own maintenance budget, including pest control, and Justin manages those orders. Maurice says he can't access the records without authorization, but suggests the building manager might have full supply logs. He finishes his drink, mumbles a quick goodbye, and rushes out, eager to stay out of this mess. I find the building manager, Frank, in his basement office. He's gruff at first, but softens when I explain I'm trying to prove my innocence. He pulls up purchasing records and shows that the IT department ordered rat poison 3 times that year, the last order 2 weeks before the duck died. Each receipt lists an employee ID, and the latest one belongs to Justin. Frank prints the records for me, and I rush to Philip's office, shaking. Philip studies the receipts, smiles for the first time, and says this is exactly the proof we needed. It ties the poison directly to Justin. He calls Detective Braun, who asks us to bring the receipts to the station. The police station. Braun reviews the evidence and says it's solid. We wait while Justin is brought in for questioning. After an hour, we hear his voice rising, defensive and angry. 3 hours later, he storms out, shouting that I'm framing him and that I'm the murderer. Officers restrain him as he's dragged outside, still yelling. Detective Braun tells us afterward that Justin denied everything and claimed someone stole his ID. His story about the morning kept changing, and he couldn't explain the deleted footage. She's now treating him as the main suspect and plans to request a search warrant for his home and work computers. Philip tells me the process will take time, but at least, finally, the investigation is focused on the right person. For the first time in weeks, I finally feel relief. Detective Braun shakes our hands and tells me to stay available for more questions. Outside, Philip reminds me that Gerald's lawsuit is still ongoing. 2 days later, I get a thick envelope, notice that the case has moved to discovery. Gerald's lawyer sends 47 detailed questions about my allergies, the duck, and my relationship with Gerald. I meet Philip, and we spend 2 days drafting responses, going over every awful detail again. Philip files our own discovery requests, asking for the duck's medical records, its training documentation, and any communication between Gerald and Justin. A week passes with no news until Philip calls, excited. Detectives found searches on Justin's computer for how to poison birds and foods toxic to waterfowl. It's proof of intent. I cry when he says I'm almost cleared. 2 days later, I see the headline, Justin arrested for animal cruelty, evidence tampering, and filing a false report. My name is officially cleared. Messages flood my phone, apologies from co-workers and people who once called me a murderer. I don't reply to any of them. The next morning, HR emails me saying my suspension is lifted and I'll receive back pay. Then EV calls, reading a scripted apology about a regrettable misunderstanding. I say nothing. When I return to the office, everyone stares. Sarah from accounting walks the other way. In the break room, conversations stop when I pass. Someone gives me a fake, too bright smile. My cubicle looks emptier than I remember. When I reach my desk, all my things are packed in a cardboard box labeled storage. My monitor, keyboard, everything gone. I start unpacking with shaking hands while people avoid eye contact. Then I hear footsteps. Gerald standing behind me, pale, then red with anger. He yells, asking why I'm back when his duck is still dead. The whole office watches as he calls me a murderer. Maurice steps in, holds him back, and escorts him to HR while Gerald keeps shouting. I sit, trembling, trying to log in, but my password doesn't work. Around lunch, Philip calls with news. Gerald's lawyer, Valeria, wants to meet to discuss dropping the lawsuit. She just learned about Justin's arrest and doesn't want to pursue the wrong person. The next day, I meet Philip, Gerald, and Valeria at the conference room. Gerald looks broken, tired, red-eyed. Valeria explains the new evidence makes their case impossible. Gerald insists someone must pay. Philip calmly says he should sue Justin, the real culprit, not me. Gerald breaks down crying, saying he just wanted justice for his duck. I tell him I understand his pain, that I never wanted the duck dead, only to breathe freely at work. I'm sorry Justin took something he loved. Gerald stares at me, asking why I'm being kind after everything. I say hurt people, and maybe we can stop now. He starts crying again, softer this time. Valeria announces they're withdrawing the lawsuit and slides papers for Gerald to sign. He signs with shaking hands. Philip smiles and says it's the most mature thing he's seen in 20 years of law. I just feel tired, but finally, it's over. After signing the papers, Gerald leaves without a word. Valeria follows, and Philip tells me to celebrate. It's a big win. Weeks pass, and life slowly returns to normal. Then Philip calls. Justin's trial is 4 months away, but his lawyer is seeking a plea deal. The evidence is overwhelming. Philip says if Justin pleads guilty, the case is effectively over. Relief and anger mix inside me. Relief it's ending, anger that he tried to destroy me. The company begins an internal review. I'm questioned about my complaints, and soon rumors spread that Evie's been demoted. A new HR director is hired and emails staff about improving accommodation policies. It's not happiness, but it feels like progress. Maurice later calls me into his office, apologizes for not supporting me sooner, and offers me a promotion to senior analyst with a $12,000 raise. I accept, grateful and exhausted. 2 weeks later, Philip calls again. Justin accepted the plea deal. He pled guilty to animal cruelty and evidence tampering, receiving 18 months probation, 500 hours of community service, and $8,000 restitution to Gerald. It's finally over. At sentencing, Justin reads a shaky apology to Gerald, admitting what he did but never looking at me. When it's done, I feel empty more than satisfied. Outside, Gerald thanks me for treating him kindly and shows me a photo of a new duck he adopted, quackers too. I wish him comfort, and we part ways quietly.